All right, so we're going to talk about squaring blocks today. This is going to be part of... All right, hold up, stop the video. We have to turn this into a drinking game. I say square or squaring so many times. In the comments, let me know how far you make it before you pass out. A series I'm going to do on just fundamentals of woodworking, fundamentals of furniture making, and yeah, one of those key things is the squaring block. So there's a lot of different kinds of squaring blocks you can use. This is, like I said, more like an L shape, and it looks a little bit like a framing square. We've got other ones that are more of your, same height, same length, kind of a squaring block. But again, the squaring block has a surface on it that can be clamped to, right? That's very important that you have a big enough surface that it can be clamped onto. And also that surface should be nice and square along here as well. Obviously it needs to be square here, but it should be square the other way as well. So something to think about. The cool thing about squaring blocks is most of your drops that you have trouble using are like 16 inches and below. And so you can make a lot of squaring blocks out of scrap plywood. Plywood works great. Baltic birch is my favorite, but I use a lot of MDO. And I got a lot of scraps, so I can make tons of squaring blocks. This particular squaring block has a plywood end, which I actually think hardwood's probably a better way to go. But for purposes of what we're doing, just having a bunch of squaring blocks for framing up cabinets works great. So this one over here, I did use the poplar, I guess softwood, I guess is probably the more correct term. But yeah, these are gonna work great for squaring up cabinets. But the important thing is that that squaring block is actually square. So if you want to take the most time to make sure that thing is square, because every subsequent cabinet that you put together with it, this is your go, no-go gauge, So if it's not square, then you're gonna be building cabinets that aren't square. That's gonna make your life harder when it comes time to put in doors and drawers. Or if there's other assemblies that have to go in that cabinet, it's gonna make your life harder, because all cabinet making is obviously putting squares inside of squares inside of squares. And if you're doing curved or demi-lune furniture, same deal. So anyway, got a couple more squaring blocks here I wanted to show. We got these. These are great too for clamping. Just again, a very simple squaring block. There's a lot of manufacturers that make squaring blocks. I personally have never purchased any. I've always just made them because that's what I've always known. So anyway, I will kind of demonstrate how you use a squaring block as it pertains to framing or making drawers or things of that nature. So yeah, check it out. So for demonstration purposes, I just have a couple of these little cutoffs from when I was making my other squaring blocks. We got our dado cut in here, with our dado stack on our table saw. But anyway, we can take any of these squaring blocks. You can take this one right here. We can use spring clamps, we can use squeeze clamps, doesn't really matter what you use. But the idea is that you're gonna take that squaring block like so. We're gonna put it on here, line it up with the edge. We're gonna run that clamp on there, okay? So we got ourselves a simple clamp, very easy to use. Same deal here. Now we can take our whatever other piece that we need to put together, we can set it on there, spring clamp it as well. And now we have a nice square surface that we can glue up. And because we know our squaring blocks are square, we took the time to make sure that they're very true. We don't really have to spend as much time constantly checking things for square, So that's one of the benefits of having a square block. Plus, it's like having an extra set of hands, especially when you're assembling big pieces of furniture. It's fantastic. So we can take something, a little bit longer. Same deal. When you have a long surface like so, a small squaring block is only going to cover so much surface, right? So there's the potential for your piece to still have a little bit of a bow or a little bit of a frown in it or smile cupping, whatever you want to call it. So having a longer squaring block helps to kind of take some of that into account. So we take our longer squaring block here, which is 24, 25 inches, and same deal. We can run a couple of clamps on here, get a clamp down at the bottom, or excuse me, towards the end where you might have a little bit of a sag, right? It helps to square that thing up by flattening everything out. We come over, we can add in another piece of wood here. Same deal. We can add ourselves a squeeze clamp here. And we can squeeze clamp this on. And again, because the piece is square, because the block is square, when you go to clamp this up, it automatically is moving this piece down to square up this piece. So again, just having a squaring block is so important. It makes life so much easier. And I'll show some other videos that I have of using squaring blocks inside of different kinds of assemblies, different cabinets. So yeah, so the fundamental in this video is using a squaring block, making squaring blocks, and making sure they're square. Why are squaring blocks important? And how do they aid you in production? How do they aid you in being more efficient with your time? How do they aid you in making a higher quality product? And you know, watching this video all the way through, you'll see what the squaring block does, you know, why it's important, and why you should definitely have squaring blocks on hand. Take a few minutes and show you how I make one of these little squaring blocks real quick. So we're going to cut out some scrap material. Obviously this long piece of maple is a drop, this piece of MDO is a drop, and we're just going to cut these out at, I think I cut these out like 3.5. Here's a little bit of hardwood. We're going to cut this 3.5 as well. These are basically going to be the legs for our squaring block. So I got a dado stack set up here. I'm going to set that thing to about 3/8 of an inch in height. And I'm going to rip down all of these pieces so that I can have a nice dado to add to my drop squaring block body piece. Okay, here's this piece that I cut out. I'm going to take a little straight edge here and I'm going to create, you know, basically a triangle, a nice straight edge on here, and strike myself a line. I'll kind of show you here what it looks like. It's just, you know, I'm basically taking a square, turning it into a rectangle, or excuse me, a square and turning it into a triangle. In this case, a rectangle, turning it into a triangle. Then we'll head over to our bandsaw. We're just going to bandsaw this thing close. I've done this 1,000 times. Yeah, we'll cut it close on this little grizzly bandsaw. I'm gonna go over my edge sander. I'm just gonna edge sand this thing right up to my pencil line so I have a nice flat surface. And the edge sander is great. It's my favorite tool. It just makes life so easy. And we'll come over here. I'm gonna cut these legs down on the miter saw so that I can add them to the body of our squaring block here. Same thing with this one, because in this particular video I'm just making 2 different size squaring blocks at the same time. It's nice to have the tighter your joint is, or excuse me, the tighter your dado is, the longer your piece is going to last. You know, a tight joint is, you know, basically a fundamental concept in woodworking. So here we're going to go ahead and glue this piece, and we'll go ahead and brad nail it in place. I think I'm just using probably 3/4 inch brad nails. Let me pound that thing on there, run a couple of nails down the center, and this thing should stay for a very long time, provided that your joint is nice and tight. So here I'm doing the same thing, and you notice in the corner here of my squaring block, I'm staying back about 1/2 inch so that corner isn't a sharp corner. I want to have a gap there for glue squeeze out and things like that when I'm clamping these. When I'm clamping up furniture or drawers or whatever I'm using the squaring blocks for. So the thing looks good. I'm going to grab a square here. I'm going to check it with this framing square. It looks pretty good. And, you know, make sure everything's nice and tight. And yeah, I think she's going to last a long time. So we'll come over to our other longer squaring block. And this one I'm going to show you how to do it with screws. So I'm basically just popping in a couple of 3/16 holes, and I'll come back with what is a piloted microstop. So it's basically a countersink that has a pilot on it. I can show you what that looks like. So the same deal, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add glue, and we're going to attach these to our squaring block, and then we're going to run a bunch of screws into this thing. And you can't have too many screws, you know, and it's not like this is a beautiful thing, so you just run as many screws as you think is applicable. I think I've got like 4 or 5 on this leg, and I probably got 3 on the other. And just suck those things down. Screws hold much better than nails. I've always found that. I'm looking at old vintage furniture. Things that are screwed just seem to hold better than nails. You know, nails are what they had a long time ago. We're modern times, we got screws. They're easy to make. So any opportunity I get, I prefer using a screw to a nail every single time. So then once again, we're going to grab our framing square. We're going to check this thing for square. And yeah, she's good to go. So now we got a great tool for last us a long time. I hope everyone watches this and look forward to look for other videos that are also going to be in this fundamentals of woodworking series that I'm going to do. And we'll update. I'll do I'll do fundamentals on joinery. I'll do fundamentals on squares, calipers, imperial versus metric, just all kinds of fundamentals of woodworking. Cleaning tools, waxing tools. What I consider to be the basics. Squaring up table saw, squaring up the fence on a table saw, the blade, all these kind of things. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great one, and we'll see you in the next video.